All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast weekly real estate tip. And today I'm here to talk to you about the two things that you must do and do an extremely high level in order to succeed and thrive in this current real estate climate. And these two things, if you're not doing these, if you don't take these seriously and you're not executing on these in the right way, you are going to fail. And by failing, I don't necessarily mean that maybe you have to drop out of the industry altogether. Look, you might find a way to go out there and survive and just barely get by, but you are going to experience a shit ton of resistance. You're going to have a very difficult time, and you're going to continue to get crushed in this real estate market climate. And why is that? Look, if we look at, about 2012 until about halfway through 2022, we were just in a very easy overall real estate climate where you could just kind of show up, kind of work, kind of be consistent, and you and or your agents would have deals fall in your lap and do okay in this business. But those days have sailed. Those days are gone, and now it is about doing these two things at a very high level. So I'm going to break down what these two things are, then we're going to do a deep dive into each of them, just because like always with this podcast, I don't want to do a podcast that just makes you feel warm, good, and fuzzy, or that just inspires and motivates you. Hopefully those things happen as well. But then from there, I want you to always walk away with tactical and strategic things that you can implement inside your real estate business and go out there and have continued success based on what you are learning here on the GSD Mode podcast. All right, so with that being said, let's jump into these two things here. So number one, you must become a true professional. What I mean by this is you must become a great operator, treating your business as a business and being a great operator, which we will go through. And like I said, we're going to break down each of these in depth here, step by step, one by one. Okay, so number one, treating your business as a business, being a great operator. Number two, you must master your skill set. We are now in an overall market climate where skill set matters. You've got to be able to convert at a high level. You've got to be really good at and hone in the essential necessary skills that you must master to be great at your craft. All right, so while we break these down too, I think it's just important to note here that these apply. It doesn't matter whether you're an individual agent, whether you're a team leader, or whether you're a brokerage owner or an agent on somebody's team. All of these things apply to all of us regardless of what level that you're at. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand that and know that, because I'm not speaking to any individualized group here inside the real estate space. So why is this so important right now? It's something that these two things I'm going to break down here have always been important. I mean, these are really the fundamentals of the real estate industry. These have always been important, and something that if you were at the top of your game in that top 1% of the industry, these are something that you're already doing, that you already know, that you already understand. But the reason why they're so important is, look, during hard times, it is that much more important to attach to and master and execute on the fundamentals at a higher level. As Warren Buffett's great quote, goes, when the tide goes out, you see who's skinny dipping. And a lot of people have been caught skinny dipping in this new climate, this new real estate climate, this new overall economy that we're in. So why is this important overall? And I'm just going to give three core key reasons right now. All right, number one, the most unaffordable time to go out there and acquire and buy real estate in United States recorded history. Now, I know a lot of you listen to this podcast are in other countries, and this holds true for Canada and most other countries as well. Now, others, I get people that come to me sometime and argue this and say, oh, if you look at the unaffordability index, it was lesser affordable during the early 80s than it is today, which I don't agree with that. Now, I know if we're looking at a graph, there's graphs out there and charts out there that say that, but the data is so manipulated and so skewed, just like we are told that life today is only 3% more expensive than it was a year ago. Well, who the hell buys into that? Who in the hell believes that? Like, everything that you do in your life is a hell of a lot more than 3% more expensive than last year. So data gets so manipulated and so skewed. So, but let's just give those of you that want to challenge me on that the benefit of the doubt. And we can sit there and say, okay, maybe it's not the most unaffordable time, which I believe it is, the most unaffordable time to go out there and acquire real estate in United States recorded history. Okay, we can say then that it's the second most unaffordable time to acquire real estate in recorded history, but that's fact number one. Okay, then number two, it is the most expensive time to be alive as a U.S. citizen. Why is this important to understand? Why is this important to know? So many people are like, oh man, we just need interest rates to come down and this whole real estate issue will be solved. Look, dude, when you got insurance going up, when you got food going up, food prices are well over double, where they were at 24 months ago. So we got all these essentials and just overall life that are making it that much more of a challenge for people to afford life, which is going to make it that much more of a challenge for people to also afford real estate. So even if interest rates come down, would that help with affordability? For sure it would help. But is that going to solve the crisis that we're in right now? I don't know. I doubt it, right? When we stack up all the other inflation and how so many people that don't even operate in home ownership are struggling to go out there and afford life. It is an issue. I'll even take it a step further in that it's a crisis that we're experiencing. Some of you have heard me talk about on previous podcasts. I know for some of you, this is your first experience here. But if you've watched the podcast for a while, I truly believe that we are in a silent depression right now. I believe that if you break this down and look at what's taken place over the last 16 years, that's where I believe that we are, and that's where we are headed. And I'm not saying that for to be a fact. That's just, my take on what I'm seeing and what I'm witnessing. And I believe that this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Okay, so then factor number 3. We are now in the most competitive real estate market, at least here in North America, to exist ever in real estate recorded history. So when we factor in the number of listings, the number of transactions, and compare that to the number of licensed real estate agents, we've never seen a competitive landscape at this magnitude. So not only do we have lesser transactions, lesser listings, and those come into those first factors, most unaffordable that we've seen in our real estate market to ever exist in recorded history, or second most if you want to get extremely technical with this. Also the most unaffordable time to be alive as a citizen in our country. And when we look at total number of licensees, it's just created this extremely competitive landscape. So we are experiencing something that I've never seen in my almost 20 years of doing this, and something that, I have great friends of mine that are, team leaders, broker owners, top producing agents that have been in this game for 40 and 50 years, and they haven't seen anything that's going on right now either, as far as when we look at a combination of these 3 things all together. And that's not taking into consideration a lot of other shit going on a geopolitical aspect and where this is at. And as I mentioned earlier, now I don't have a crystal ball, but when I look at what's going on with fiscal policy, what's going on with monetary policy, what's going on, domestically, with from the moves that we're making domestically, with policy and whatnot, and then when we look on the geopolitical moves taking place, everything that I'm seeing shows that this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Now, with that being said, I am not here to fear porn any of you. There's massive opportunities right now in this marketplace. This is the second best market that I've seen in my almost 20 years of doing this. So 2007 was kind of the beginning of the first best market that I've seen. And this is the second best market that I've seen, where it's easier than ever to go out there and stack up listings and to go out there and differentiate yourself. This is an amazing time, an amazing market for those of us that do these 2 things that I'm talking about: treating your business as a business, being a great operator, and mastering your skill set. Now, those that want to continue operating as amateurs, those that don't take their businesses seriously, those that aren't treating this as a true profession, those that aren't working on developing the right skill sets and so forth, are going to continue to get crushed and continue to get murdered at higher levels than we've probably seen in the past. But those that operate as true professionals, it's going to be that much easier to go out there and stand out and continue to crush it. So I'm not trying to make this a doom and gloom, but I do believe in dealing in realities, right? Like anybody can go out there and argue whether the glass is half full, half empty. It's like, what does a realist do? A realist just drinks the damn water, right? So this is one of the best opportune markets to go out there and crush it and succeed at a high level. So I am not giving anybody permission that's watching or listening to this podcast that it's okay if your business is contracting, because it is not. Your business should continue to be thriving and continue to be growing even during these times. Now, for the average out there, for the average realtor, the average team leader, the average broker owner, yes, they are going to contract. But then, as everybody else, the majority of our industry is contracting because they're amateurs, they're not professionals. That's going to continue to just leave more and more market share for you and I that are committed to our profession, committed to going out there and fucking slaying it in our real estate businesses. All right, so now let's dive into these 2 things. We'll first dive into the first one, which is about being a true professional, being a great operator. This just really boils down to treating your business as a business. So what do I mean by this? Let's break this down a little bit further. I got a couple pages of notes here, so make sure I don't forget anything, miss anything, and leave anything out here, and also to allow me to stay on track. So what do I mean by treating your business as a business, being a great operator, being a true professional? All those three things are just a different way of saying the same damn thing, but it's just that. Okay, we are going to treat our business as a true professional. What does a true professional do? A true professional treats their business as a business and understands the power of being a great operator. So what do great operators do? Number one, they know the game that they are playing. You got to know the game, you got to understand the game, and you got to master the game, which we'll also get into when it comes to skill sets, and I'll speak a little bit further on that when it comes into skill sets. But you got to know the game that we are playing, you got to master the game, you got to understand it, you got to know it, and you got to go out there and master each element of the real estate game. Then from there, which I'll get deeper into that again when it comes to mastering skill sets, because in order to know it, understand it, master it, of course, we got to go out there and master it. But we know the game, and we got to make sure we're playing the game at a high level. Then from there, so once we know and understand and master the game, then from there, it comes down to strategy. So that's number one. Number two is strategy. Strategy is your overall effective plan, or I should say overall effective plans to go out there and play this game at the highest possible level. So you're going to then understand the power of strategy, because again, strategy is just your overall effective plan. And you're going to assess each element of the game that we are playing and always be working on making sure that you've got the best overall strategy and or strategies to go out there and play the game at the highest possible level. Now, this is a lot, and I get it, because if we look at the real estate game, the overall real estate game, I'll just break it down right now. So the overall real estate game is to get people to know you, like you, trust you, be aware of what you do for a living, follow up frequently, and or keep your message in front frequently. Your business will continue to grow and expand. But in order to master any game, we can't just know what the overall game is or the overall objective of the game. We got to understand the directions. We got to understand the instructions at a very high level. So as an example, if you and I are going to sit down and play a game of chess, you probably whoop my ass because I don't know the game well. It's just the analogy I can think of right now. But the overall objective is to capture your opponent's king, and whomever does that is going to be victorious in that game of chess, right? Well, then for there, in order for me to do that, I got to understand the instructions and the directions. I got to understand the role of each piece, how each piece can be moved across the board. I got to understand different openings, and just overall how the pieces move across the board. And maybe this is a bad analogy because I don't know chess extremely well, but hopefully that makes sense. So then when we look at the real estate game, what are the directions and the instructions? So then from there, we're looking at the overall real estate funnel. It all starts off with activities. You go out there and do activities. So these are your lead gen activities. But it's that understanding that lead gen activities exist and only exist for one reason and one reason only, and that is to generate leads. Boom, you exchange something of value in exchange for their contact information. Now they enter your funnel, go into your CRM. So for me, then boom, they go into Perfect Storm, my CRM that I have and utilize. So they go into my funnel. Right, so it starts off with activities. Then from there, everybody knows what a funnel looks like, right? You can visualize it. So think of an oil funnel. It starts off wide and then gets more narrow. So it starts off putting a lot of things or a lot of people in that funnel, and then gets more narrow, and spits out a smaller number at the bottom. So it starts off activities. That's how you enter human beings, because we're in the human connection, human relationship business. Then we have human beings enter into our real estate sales funnel. And hopefully you're using a CRM to go out there and manage it. CRMs are our most important system that we utilize inside of our business, the most important asset that we utilize inside of our business. Okay, so then from there, now I got leads. Now leads exist in my system or in my world only to convert those leads into appointments set. Okay, appointment set exists then, so that's the next layer of the funnel. Go from appointment set to appointment conductions to clients then to under contract to commission check / past client. It doesn't stop there, repeats, and now becomes our number one lead source. So that's the overall game. And then now I know when at first glance, when you first hear this or see this, the average person out there will sit there and say, "Oh, I already know this. That's common sense. Duh. I understand that the appointment, the purpose of setting an appointment is to conduct the appointment. Duh." But look, that arrogant attitude is the arrogant attitude that amateurs operate by, and that's why their business continues to suck. I won't mention the person's name, but I was talking to somebody the other day on a phone call, and this is somebody that reached out to me for help, right? And now this person has been in the industry longer than I have, but they're closing less than 10 deals a year. But they were unopen like didn't have an open mind to listen to new concepts. So this is somebody that's just repeated the same mediocre year for decades and decades and decades, just figured out a way to go out there and survive. Yeah, right? Even though they've been in this business for almost 3 decades or whatever that time frame was, they just figured out how to survive and repeat the same mediocre, shitty year every single year for 3 decades straight. Now, that's why I'm saying that is somebody that's an amateur is not because of their production level. I'm saying they're an amateur because when I was sitting there talking to them about this stuff, the response was, I already know this. I already know this. I already know this. Anytime you find yourself saying, I already know this, I challenge you to utilize that as a trigger that then allows you to follow up with 3 questions. Okay, if I already know this, number 1, am I doing it? Number 2, have I mastered it? Number 3, do my results prove that I've mastered it? As an example, am I reaching out to you and begging you to come on the GSD Mode podcast for an interview because you are such a fucking badass at this area in your market that you are going out there crushing it and slaying it? Because I don't have anybody on my podcast that's not in the top 5% and usually in the top 1%, of this industry. So are you in the top of the top? Are you in the best of the best? Are you slaying it in your space? Like when I tell people, okay, the purpose of activities is to go out there and generate leads. Again, they're like, duh. I'm like, okay, well, if that's such a duh moment for you, are you obsessing over and mastering and making sure that you are maximizing and optimizing every activity that you do to generate the most amount of leads from that thing? Everything that you do when it comes to an activity, that activity only exists when it comes to our business world to exist to generate a lead. Are you doing everything possible to go out there and maximize and optimize on that? Are you obsessing over this? Obsession is just another word for mastery. Okay, well then now I get these leads in my system. Okay, these leads exist, to go out there and convert those leads into an appointment. And again, I know that sounds like a duh thing. But then from there, if I were to follow up with you and be like, okay, do you know the timeline and psychology per each lead source? Are you doing everything that you possibly can to maximize to have the most high optimized conversion rate per lead source possible? Do you understand and know what the conversion rate should even be for that lead source? Do you know what the best of converting at that lead source at, what the process is that they're following, what it is that they're doing? The vast majority, like 99 out of 100 conversations that I'm having with, quote unquote professionals or those that think they're real estate professionals, when I'm asking these questions, it's like looking at a deer in headlights. And that's okay. There was a point in my business where that was the case for me too. The difference is I never allowed myself to get arrogant. So then, because when we get arrogant, and think, oh, I already know this, duh, right? That limits ourselves of growth. And then we stop focusing on mastery, and that takes us, we're no longer true professionals. We are just amateurs at that point. So the difference was, even though I sucked at all this shit at one point in my career, I was open to learning. I operated as a true professional, meaning that I wanted to continue to get better. Even though my numbers weren't a true professional numbers yet, I operated as a true professional, meaning always looking to go out there and gather more information. Like you stick me in a room with, and it doesn't matter how seasoned agents are, I'm probably going to be the most curious person in that room and taking more notes, at least in any room that I've been in. My notebook is usually filled more so than anybody else's. I look at this like, okay, Michael Jordan, true. I think we can all agree that he was a true professional, right? A professional of his craft, not talking about whether you like him, don't like him. I'm just talking about, amazing at the game that he played. So at no point, even at the peak, at the height of his career, when he'd go up and show up for practice every day, what was he doing? He was doing layups. He was shooting free throws. He was doing things that he probably mastered. I'm stealing this from my friend Mindy. She mentioned this on stage at an event that I did a couple weeks ago. But, she was like, hey, look, even though those are things that he probably mastered at the age of 4 or 5, at the peak of his career, he was still doing those things. He was still practicing those things. Any element that he needed to master, that he needed to improve on to make his overall game better and sharper, he paid immense attention to and continue to execute on those things. All right, so we got to know the game and we got to master the game. Then from there, number 2 of this is strategy. So a strategy is just that overall effective plan. So assessing each element of the game and then asking ourselves, do we have the most effective overall strategy to maximize and optimize on this portion of the real estate game? Then the third step is systems and processes. So processes are just the step-by-step actions that we take to go out there and get the desired result that we want. So this is just documenting our processes. So we take what's in our head, put it onto paper. We have documented, written out processes for each stage of the game. Why do systems and processes, though, come after strategy? Because what are we developing systems and processes around? It's about our strategy. It's about, like anything I do more than once is going to have a documented process. That process is going to live inside of a system, so I do not forget to execute on this stuff. I do the same thing each and every single time in the same way. Everybody gets the same experience, creates that predictability inside my business and whatnot, allows me to develop the right habits inside my business. Well, if I don't, what am I creating those processes around? Right? It's all about my strategy. Right? So that's why strategy, we got to know and understand the game so we can identify the right strategies for each element of the game. And this all comes down to treating our business as a business and being a great operator, right? So we know and understand the game, we master the game. Then we identify the best and overall effective strategies for each stage of the game that we are playing. Then from there, we develop our systems and processes. So processes are the recipes. The system itself is the cookbook. The processes live inside the systems. Most don't understand this. Most don't grasp this, but great operators understand the power and the importance of systems and processes and what they are and how to go out there and build these out and how to go out there and follow these. You cannot be a great operator if you're not doing these things. Okay, the next element 4 is tracking. You now need to track each element of the game. If you don't know the data and you don't know the details in your business, you are going to struggle and you are going to fail. You are not going to succeed at a very high level. The only way to make smart strategic decisions inside your overall business is to have tracked, measured data that you can rely on. So that way you can replicate, duplicate, you can see what you need to scale, what you need to cut, you can inspect what you expect, all of that stuff. And then the last element, once these other 4 above are dialed in, eventually it's then about plugging in the right people at the right times inside of our business. Because as a solo entrepreneur, solo agent doing everything, eventually you are going to hit a capacity. And if you want to continue to grow and scale, the only way to do that is by eventually adding in the right strategic people at the right times in the right places inside of your real estate business. So great operators, those who treat their business as a business, understand eventually this becomes about people. But people cannot show us their greatness unless we have the ability to go out there and recruit and hire and train and retain great talent. But people cannot show us their greatness unless they have great systems and processes to plug into. And then we got to be able to track what their data. We got to be able to inspect what we expect based on their performance. And we got to even know, okay, what's acceptable metrics that they're executing on or not executing on in order to know if they're doing a good job or not, right? So this is treating your business as a business. Okay, now let's transition into part number 2 of this, of the 2 things that if you're not doing at a high level, you are going to fail. But if you do these 2 things at a high level, you are going to kick ass on a level that you probably never even thought possible. I know that happened for me. Like I never realized as a college dropout jumping in this industry at 23, I had no idea the amount of opportunities that were available, inside this industry. I had no idea. Like if you would have asked me, oh, Josh, did you know you'd eventually be where you're at? Did you know you'd be one of the top, team leaders and top coaches and top podcasters in the real estate industry? And like, dude, I would have never thought any of this stuff was possible, right? So with that, step number 2 here is skill set and mastery of your skill set. Because again, we are in an industry now or a market climate now where skill set matters. It's always mattered. But like I said earlier, man, the last decade or so was just such an easy overall climate where if you just kind of showed up, kind of were consistent, you would have abundance of deals fall in your lap. Right? And this is why, man, I've seen so many people struggling right now because they've never really had to work. And I'm not saying that they didn't work, they didn't show up to work. I'm like, they never had to work strategically inside and on their business and inside and on their skill set and overall skill acquisitions, right? So then, okay, what do we need to master? And there's a lot of things that we need to master. I'm going to go through a little bit of a list here with you, but thinking about this, of anything that moves the needle forward, you've got to go out there and master. I'm not saying that you've got to be the best at every little thing inside your business, but look, if you can get pretty damn good at everything that applies inside your business, you can go out there and develop and create a world-class result. So mastery, though, doesn't mean that you're ever, I'm not saying that you got to, again, be the best at everybody at all of these things. But when we're committed to mastery, I may not become the best. And there's a lot of things I'm not necessarily the best at, but I've gotten damn good at every portion of the game. Now, some of the game, I would argue that I am the best at. And then the other things, maybe I'm not the best at, but I'm pretty damn good at them. But you put all those things together and you get a great, epic, amazing result. All right, so we already talked about this quite heavily, but you got to master the game. We got to know the game, understand the game, and we got to master it. So we got to master each level of the game. And just to repeat these fast, starts off the activities. So you got to master your lead gen activities. You got to master your ability to go out there and follow up and convert those leads into appointments at a high level. You got to master the appointment setting and appointment confirmation process to get the highest appointment shows as possible. You got to master the appointment conduction process. So this is going to be your listing presentations, your buyer presentations, your recruiting presentations. You got to master that ability to go out there and convert those that you're meeting with into clients, right? You got to master the client process, master the past client process, each one of those things. And what did I say earlier? Another word for mastery is obsession, obsessing over improvement at all times. So I'd be looking at, if I were you, this is what I do. I print a copy of the sales funnel. And I have it existing in multiple different places in my world and throughout my office. So it forces me to pay attention to it each and every day. And I'm looking at it. I'm always asking myself, okay, what can be improved? What needs to be improved? What can I raise up and level up my skill set with this thing? All right, so then from there, you got to master unique selling propositions. As I said earlier, we are now in the most competitive landscape to exist in U.S. and are just, real estate recorded history, right? So at least to my knowledge, and I know NAR hasn't been around forever collecting data, but we have pretty accurate data for about 100 years of real estate recorded history here, at least in the States. So we've never seen a competitive climate in this same way. Okay, so what is a unique selling proposition? That is your unique differentiator. That's your unique value add. What differentiates you? So I'm in a market with 60,000 agents just inside my MLS. So what I mean by a USP, unique selling propositions, is why would somebody choose to utilize me versus the other 59,999 agents? Why would somebody choose to join my team versus all the other teams? Why would somebody choose to join my brokerage versus all the other brokerages? These are things that, if you are a true professional, and if you do this, again, it's going to allow you to differentiate yourself from your competitors and get people choosing you versus everybody else out there. So you got to master the art and your ability to go out there and differentiate yourself. All right, you got to master psychology and timeline for each different lead source. So I know that I'm kind of overlapping here because I already said, okay, you got to master your ability to go out there and convert these leads into clients, but to take this a layer deeper, which understanding, okay, how do we do that? How do we convert higher? Again, whether this is buyers, whether it's sellers, whether it's agent recruits, how do we do that at a higher level? Okay, well, I need to understand the psychology and timeline of every single lead source. Why? The psychology allows me to develop and craft the right messaging so I can meet that lead or that human being with what is going on in their mind, right? So when we understand the psychology of that subset of our ideal client, that allows us to match with our actual messaging. Then timeline allows us to establish, okay, how long do we need to follow up overall to maximize and optimize conversions, and how frequently during that timeline, right? So examples, if I'm a Zillow lead, is vastly different on timeline and how I'm speaking to that lead versus a paid online Facebook lead. And those are both different than an open house. And those are both different than a for sale by owner. And a for sale by owner is different than an expired. An expired is different than a notice of default. A brand new agent that I'm trying to recruit that's in real estate school right now has a different psychology and a different timeline than maybe a seasoned high producing agent that I'm trying to go out there and recruit, right? So understanding this is extremely, extremely valuable if you want to get damn good at sales, right? But if you want to grow a great business, one of the most important skill sets that you can ever master is sales. Being a great operator is amazing and it is important and it's essential. However, you could be the best operator on the planet, but if you're shitty at sales and you don't have the ability to consistently bring in new top line revenue to your organization, you're going to fail. Right? That's why I have two things, not just one thing, in this podcast that you must go out there and master. Okay, so mastering follow-up and your overall ability to go out there and lead convert at the highest possible manner. So your overall conversion rates per source, and make sure that you know what those are, understand those, and make sure that you have the best follow-up protocol to make sure that you're on gauge with the top of the top in the industry. Okay, you got to master objection handling. Now, objection handling isn't just for leads and the clients, right? You're going to hit objections, whether it's recruiting top talent, whether it's going after buyers, sellers, agents, top talent, staff inside your organization. You can have objections when it's just negotiating offers. Your ability to go out there and handle objections will allow you to, again, convert at a much higher level and get things done and get things closed and keep the process moving forward on whatever that thing is that you're trying to go out there and do, right? So like, okay, now I had to do all this stuff and master all this stuff when I was working at a high level with buyers and sellers. Now I got to master this stuff on the agent side, right? Because now what my role is to go out there and recruit top talented staff, recruit top talented agents, and to get them performing and producing at all high times. So when I'm recruiting them in the door, there's objections. But then what about those agents that have already got recruited? Okay, they're going to have objections as to like, I got to overcome objections as to why to get them to do the work, why to show up daily consistently, why to, right? Like this is a skill set that's going to carry over to every element of your overall business. All right, you got to master your ability to go out there and build rapport. People don't listen. If they don't like you, they will not listen to you, right? And if they won't listen to you, it's very hard to convert anything or anybody at a high level and get anybody to do what you want and need them to go out there and do. All right, you got to master your internal confidence. Confidence is huge when it comes down to sales. Sales is just a transference of conviction. So you got to master self-confidence. You got to master enthusiasm. So anything that moves the needle forward, again, in your overall business, those are the things that you must master. Another word for mastery, I've already talked about this, but it's obsession, right? So these are the things that you got to obsess over, and great operators, those that treat this as a true profession. I mean, if you look at just the sports world, what's the difference between professionals and amateurs? Amateurs typically just show up, they do it as a hobby, they do it as, whatever, where like if you go study even in like elementary school or junior high, the best of the game. I mean, look at like Kobe. Just every waking hour that he had when he wasn't forced to go to school, whatever, like he was practicing his craft, from a very, very young age, and never stopped that. Now, I'm not saying by any means to not go out there and have a life. What I am saying though is, okay, if you're working, let's just say a 10-hour day, and then spending, or 8-hour day, whatever the amount of hours are that you can actually physically work, and then, okay, spend 2 hours a day. Right? 2 hours a day on working on the business, right? Working on your skill sets. So you got 8 hours a day in the trenches. Then you got 2 hours a day that you're working at these two things, becoming a great operator and mastering your skill set. And if you do that, boom, your world changes and changes fast. And look, I get and understand that this is a lot, and it's overwhelming when we think of, oh shit, I got to go out there and master this stuff. Number one, time is going to pass anyway, so why give a shit about how long it's going to take? Time is going to pass anyway, and it's not like you got to master all this stuff and be brilliant at this stuff before your business starts improving, right? Like it's going to start improving immediately. Right? Like as you're getting a little bit better in each area, it will start, like you'll see that needle moving forward very, very quickly inside your business. So yes, it takes focus. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes energy. It takes all of these things. However, it takes a hell of a lot less than most people think. I mean, you can really go out there and have all of this dialed in and master all of this in less than 12 months if you're willing to invest a couple hours a day and just committed to dialing in these two different things. But again, is it going to take work? Yeah, but it's a hell of a lot less work than going out there and struggling. It's a hell of a lot less work. Like you'll end up spending more time stressed out about bills and the other pains and the other conflicts that come up, versus the time that you have to invest to go out there and be a true master in your craft. All right, so if you are wanting additional help to just accelerate and fast forward getting these two things dialed in, becoming a great operator and mastering your craft. This is why I created my 12-month Mastery Bootcamp coaching program, which hands down is the most effective overall real estate business coaching program, where we can cover everything A to Z, from making sure that you are a great operator, making sure that you know the game, master the game, making sure that you've got the right strategies in place and understand effective strategy, making sure that you've got the right processes and systems in place, making sure that you got the right tracking system in place, making sure that you understand and know how to add people in place, and then making sure that you master each element of this game. And not only do I walk you through and show you exactly what to do and how to do it, I provide you all the resources that you need that I utilize in my business. So this is essentially my whole business in a box given to you, with over 150 hours of in-depth coaching and training, where I'll walk you through exactly what to do, how to do it, give you everything I already have in place in my business, so it's as plug and play possible, right? So that way we can just accelerate the speed of this. And then from there, in addition to that, you have daily access 7 days a week to me personally throughout this whole entire experience. So not only is it hands down by far, nothing comes close to being the most effective real estate building coaching program inside the industry, I've also made it where it's also the most affordable. Any of you can afford it, right? It's cheaper than your daily Starbucks budget. It's $199 a month. to go out there and get through this program. If you do the monthly payments, it's a little bit cheaper than that if you decide to pay for the year up front. So if you're interested in learning more and having a conversation with me personally, and everything that I do is 100% zero pressure. So I'm not going to beg you. I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to try to sell you. I will answer any questions that you have. If it's for you, great. If not, that's okay. Look, we can still be friends. It's not going to be for everybody. And I understand because people's different situations, maybe you can't do it. Whatever the reason may be, it's okay. You know, right? I operate by a very strict, absolute no pressure policy. So if this is something that you want to learn more about, jump into, go check out gsdmode.com, either at the top of the website or you can click on the coaching tab. There's going to be an area there where you can book a 100% zero discovery call with me personally. So it's going to be me showing up on the call. So it's you and I going to have an hour conversation, and I'll spend maybe about 15, 20 minutes going through what the program entails, how it works, and so you know exactly what's included and how it works, and that way you know if it's going to be a fit for you. And then the rest of the time we can be spent on answering questions that you have about the program and or just your overall real estate business. So I'll make sure that this call is powerful for you either way. So again, check out gsdmode.com. All right, you guys, hope that you found this helpful. Make sure that you are focusing on and taking these two things seriously, because I can promise you, if you do these two things, and I know within these two things there's a lot, but if you do these two things, you will go out there and continue to grow and scale and continue to murder it regardless of the marketplace itself. All right, guys, hope that this was helpful. Keep crushing it, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.